Hi, my name is Blake Beckett. I'm going to share with you my recent inquiry titled Classroom Relationships with Peers, the Teacher, and the Content, online and face-to-face. So my problem of practice started. I was teaching sixth grade language arts at PK Young, and I taught several different class periods of the same content. And just like the year before, I had one of my classes that was feeling really different. It was the same teacher, me, same content, but it was a really different culture feeling in the room among the learners. Our classroom conversations were very unsatisfying. Students really didn't want to engage with questions I posed about text we were reading. There were a couple of strong personalities in the room, and I was wondering if they were a little bit intimidating to other students, like they were shutting other students down. And there were several students with documented learning differences in IEPs or 504s, and two students whose families had disclosed to me that the students were struggling with anxiety and depression. At the same time, the students were very motivated to be on their phones and their devices. We were a one-to-one school. Every student had a Chromebook. So it was a constant tug of war of them asking to be on devices and me asking them to close them and engage in classroom conversations. So I decided to investigate online book clubs and to harness that draw to the devices, but also as a tool to actually engage more critically with each other and the content. So I did some research and I found these articles that gave me a great education about online book clubs. First, I found that they were a very valid option. There were several people out there who had worked with them and had shared their learnings. But part of their learnings was that I needed to explicitly model how students should post. And I could do that with my own examples and rubrics. I also needed to be in their online book clubs and monitor their responses on a very regular basis, meaning every day, to monitor, but also every once in a while to contribute for whatever reason I saw needed. So my wonderings became, in what ways will the introduction of online book clubs, discussion forums affect students in class relationships with each other, the content, and me in our face-to-face interactions? And then what are some strategies I can use to support my students' online book club discussion participation to help them connect with each other respectfully and to interact with the content critically? I had 5 data collection sources or strategies. And first was an anonymous online survey that I gave the same questions before I started my online book clubs and after. And I collected data for a 4-week time period while students were engaging in these online book club discussions. Another source of data for me was the actual posts in Canvas that students posted every day after they read a few chapters of their book club. And students were able to choose 1 out of 5 books I offered. So there were 5 different book club discussions, and the students were divided among them. I also was teaching another book as a way to model the strategies I wanted them to be using in their online book clubs. And we would have face-to-face whole class discussions around that text. On 3 different dates, I actually stepped out of the circle myself and took a discussion map of how the conversation went, who spoke, and what was the nature of their comment. I also listed my mini lesson foci by date. And then my last source of data was to keep a research journal for myself every day. And every day I responded to these same prompts to track my thinking and what I was observing happening among the students and myself. So data analysis began first by reading through my entire data set several times. And by that point, with all of those 5 sources, it was a lot of data. I decided to start coding the survey responses pre and post, and I coded for the nature of their comments. And I wanted to be able to see pre and post results and information side by side. So I created a chart to show me that, and it looks like this. So you could see the nature of the comments, and then I grabbed some examples because that really helped me hear the students' voices in the responses that they put into the survey. Another step in my data analysis was all those online book club responses. I decided I couldn't follow all of the students, so I chose 3. I chose a student currently working above grade level, a student currently working right about grade level, and a student who was currently working a little bit below grade level, because I wanted to see how those different types of students were experiencing the online book clubs. So with highlighting, I found my 3 students and tracked them through the 4 weeks of their posting. I then arranged each student's data by the mini lesson topics, because that helped me see if my mini lessons were impacting their activity and engagement in the online book clubs. And that looks like this. So this was for student 1. Here is my mini lesson topic. And then here is what they posted that day in their online book club. So you can really see how my mini lesson might have influenced their engagement with the content. So after all that data analysis, I was able to come to 3 claims. Remember, my research questions were about, if I used online book clubs, how would it impact our relationships, both with me, with the students among themselves, and with the content? And then what are the strategies that I can use to support my students' interactions? So my first claim is about the relationships. I learned 3 different mini ideas about my students and the relationships. So I learned the relationships were actually important to the students, both with their peers and with me. And I learned they were mostly positive. And I learned that my students were actually really thoughtful about relationships. And that came through in their responses to the survey, because it wasn't coming through to me in our interactions in the classroom. So here were some of their responses showing me that relationships were important to them. Someone typed that they felt like their opinion was valued in the class, no one judges them, and they think very highly of a lot of the people in the class. Showing that the relationships were mostly positive, also from that survey, pre and post, that many students felt comfortable talking in the whole class discussion, that they felt they could be partners with almost anyone, and that they had a positive relationship with me. I understand that that last response might be influenced by, the power dynamics of me as teacher, even though it was an anonymous survey. But I was pleasantly surprised, because I didn't always feel that way from body language and whatnot. And then these responses to the survey showed me how thoughtful my students were about relationships, that nobody would laugh if they said anything wrong. People could talk to other people and be anyone's partner. Everyone was nice most of the time. I thought this was really interesting. They said that over technology, it can be easier to say hard things, which is a reason to offer online discussions. And here someone offers a counter argument that it's easier to talk to someone face to face, because you get that expression, the facial expression and tone in their voice. And when you're online, you can't see someone's body language. So just very thoughtful about how the relationships were at play, both face-to-face and online. My second big claim was that my responsive mini lessons each day seemed to positively influence both their online and their face-to-face behaviors socially and academically. So looking at my list of mini lessons, and then how following a student, their responses each day showed how, like when I introduced a rubric to grade how online discussions should be formatted and giving a model, the quality of the students' posts increased and became more critical and detailed. You can see here one more to show that the big increase after I showed an example of a post. Also in face-to-face, once we talked about what was expected in a face-to-face class discussion and introduced a rubric, that the quality and number of those exchanges increased dramatically. And my third claim is that, ironically, even though my students had all these devices and really wanted to be on them, they didn't necessarily always feel comfortable with them. So creating this time and space with which we talked about how to use the technology in the online book club, there was an increase in their comfort that I learned from the survey. So after this research, I plan to definitely continue to design and deliver responsive mini lessons based on what I'm observing students are doing with the content and with each other and with me, because I found that had a positive influence. I will also use online book club discussions in the future, because I do believe my students became much more engaged with the texts when they had an authentic audience among each other, rather than just me if they were just giving chapter summaries or responses to me. And finally, I want to think more about those face-to-face discussion maps and how I can continue to learn about how to support students to have critical and engaging conversations face-to-face in classrooms. Thank you.